Hello friends, this lecture is a part of an NMEICT project funded by Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. The lecture is on factors affecting fermentation economics. There are three major factors that affect the fermentation economics. These are market potential, fermentation and product recovery cost, and third, process appraisal. First, market potential. A process is considered commercially successful when it is produce high yield of any fermentation product. The selling price of the product should be such that it recover the production cost with satisfactory profit. On the other hand, the demand or market potential of the product decide to what extent product should be produced. There are two ways to equate the demand and supply ratio. First, whether the market for the product may already exist or not, and the same product has previously been sold by other or presently under selling. Second, what is the potential of establishment of market for a newly discovered fermentation product which has not been sold previously in the market? That is, it is required to establish a market for that product. Placement of any new fermentation product in the market is a time consuming and costly affair, as it requires approval by various government agencies like Food and Drug Administration or other before they introduce in the market. Sometimes, due to fewer use and less demand of certain fermentation product, it is not easy to place that product in the market. The market of some product already exists due to consumers' acceptability and long-term persistence of this product in the market. Market potential, production cost, market demand, and sell as well as competition amongst the existing products are important aspects to be considered at the time of launching a new product in the market. Many fermentation products are not sold directly in the market but used internally for an industrial concern. For example, a company that manufactures and sell product A might produce product B by fermentation of C, followed by a chemical conversion of B to A. On the other hand, a fermentation product can be sold directly to a different industrial use which chemically transform the fermentation product before sale in the market. Doing so, it is possible to reduce the extra cost of advertising, packaging, and distribution to retail outlets which apply to fermentation product marketed directly to public. Addition to this, generally it do not require any trademark, proprietary name and generic name. Foreign sales present an added market potential for many fermentation products. For example, ex- exporting product and selling in the foreign market, and on the other hand, manufacturing the same product in foreign country and selling in their market makes a wide difference in the profit. Now, second part, fermentation and product recovery cost. This includes many aspects. First, medium constituent. Usually, the cost of different constituents of the production medium decides the competitive position and potential profit of a fermentation product. For example, Inoculum media are usually less expensive because they are designed to promote fast growth of the producer instead of converting a large amount of carbon substrate in the product. At the same time, they are required in less volume. In contrast, production media which are aimed to produce the product require in more volume and time many times high cost of a single medium can affect the selling price of the fermentation product. As any component of the medium, to reduce the medium cost, one should try to make provision for the alternative and substitute low cost replacement of certain medium constituents while formulating the fermentation production media. As a matter of fact, every components are directly or indirectly influence the economic of the fermentation process. For example, because of the world political situation, if the availability and cost of canned blackstrap molasses becomes too high, one cannot afford to use this carbon source for the fermentative production at large scale. Under such situations, there should be a provision for an alternative carbon source which is cost effective and make available easily. One should remember that sometimes he use of an alternative medium require use of an different fermentation microorganisms or strain of the organisms. Several media need decontamination to remove some contaminated chemical species as they influence the product accumulation and many times make the recovery process difficult. For example, certain metal ions can be removed by ion exchange resins. Many media require pre-treatment before they employed. For example, starch must be pre-treated with amylase to release fermentable sugar, and proteins must be degraded by proteolytic enzymes to release amino acid for yeast growth. Acid or alkali are required to adjust the pH of the medium during production process. As these reagents are not so costly but considerable reagent may be required for the adjusting the pH value of a large volume of medium which many times lead to a considerable high cost. Same way, media rich in protein components produce foam and instead the uh, changes and increase the chance of uh, contamination. Under such conditions, controlling of foam either by chemical antifoams agents of which mechanical device also add the cost of production. Recovery and purification of fermentation product is very important step of downstream process and markedly increase the overall cost production cost. Recovery and purification should be fast, easy, and should occupy less step with application of low cost chemicals. Now, second, another aspect, fermentation incubation period. Fermentation process with short incubation periods are less costly compared to processes with prolonged incubation with reference to the inoculum buildup and to production. One can harvest more batch in case of short incubation period fermentation with a large turnover of fermentation equipment. Fermentation requiring long incubation period require additional requirements, extra labor cost, have more possibility of getting contamination. Now, one more aspect, contamination and the sterilization. Many fermentation processes are more prone to contamination compared to protected fermentation processes. For example, fermentation processes in which foaming is the common problem. prolonged incubation requiring processes in which the product producing organisms poorly compete with contamination for fermentation nutrient, processes in which contaminants degrade or chemically change the fermentation product, and last, certain fermentation processes sensitive to lactic phase, for example, certain bacterial and actinomycet fermentations. Those fermentation processes in which media sterilization cost is not affordable, certain alternative methods to control the growth of contaminants are adopted, and these are adjusting low pH of the medium, selecting a substrate poorly amenable to attack by contaminants, and partial sterilization of the medium, selecting certain chemicals which retard the growth of contaminants is always in favor of less in always favor of more profit. If the fermentation medium is severely contaminated, then it must be discarded, and this add more cost to the production. Even though the fermentation is not gravely contaminated and may not be serious enough to discard, although also affect the overall yield of the product. Many times, mutation in the genetically unstable production strain results in a population of low yielding cells. One more aspect, that is yield and product recovery. High yield and adequate recovery of any fermentation product is of prime importance in any fermentation process. For any fermentation product, high yield with proper recovery and purity affect its position on the open market. For any fermentation product to maintain a competitive market position, it requires to have continuous research and product development program to improve and increase its yield and a better method for product recovery. The cost of these important downstream processes very high but extremely important too. One more aspect, that is product purity. The purity of fermentation product decide its future stand and on long-term market value. The cost of product is directly associated to its purity. For example, some antibiotic preparations useful for human application must be sterile and free from pyrogens. On the other hand, some products which are used with other antibiotic preparations are sold in crude form for mixture with animal feeds. Some fermentation products can also be marketed at different level of purity and at more than one concentrations. For example, lactic acid is sold at strength ranging from approximately 20 to 85% and at purity level ranging from the relatively crude to high purity edible and USP grade, and each of these grades of lactic acid has a place on the market. Purification step like solvent extraction and followed by crystallization for a fermentation product significantly contribute to the overall cost. One more aspect, that is waste disposal. The overall production cost of any fermentation product is influenced by outflow of capital used for waste treatment and disposal, and it depends on following two aspects. First, acceptance of fermentation waste with or without pre-treatment by municipal waste treatment facilities or any other local service providers. And second, maintenance of wastewater treatment plant by the fermentation. As per state and federal regulations, it is not possible to dispose fermentation waste into rivers, streams or any other stagnant water bodies for long time. In certain case, for example, Waste generated in the fermentation process, which exploit plant or animal pathogens as the fermentation organisms, require an additional expense of sterilization before discarding to avoid biohazards. There are many sources through which waste is generated, and these sources are: first, waste generated from the actual fermentation, waste generated from recovery processes, waste generated from cleaning water, waste generated from cooling waters, and waste generated from various stages of product recovery and purification. Many times it is feasible to use waste water for some other purpose. For example, cooling water can be utilized in media makeup for similar or other fermentations. Many times it is possible to recover byproduct from the fermentation waste. For example, riboflavin from acetone butanol fermentation. It is imperative to state that recovery of economically valuable byproduct from a fermentation process recover the overall cost and improve the profit picture for any fermentation product. One more aspect, that is labor cost. The cost which incur to pay for non-technically and technically trained personnel working in any industry at all level of it is called labor cost. This include labor related to: first, culture handling; second, inoculum; third, production; fourth, product recovery and purification; fifth, maintenance of the product sterility; sixth, packaging of products; seven, steam production; eight, equipment maintenance and cleaning; and last, administration. This labor cost depends on types of fermentation process, whether fermentation process is batch process or continuous. So, contaminant to be employed, type of organisms under use, for example, genetically engineered or non-genetically engineered, and volume of the products. One more aspect, that is research cost. To maintain a competitive commercial stand, the cost picture of a fermentation process, which include expenses incurred in the research and discoveries for the development of the process, should be clear. Many times, high cost research without positive outcome in terms of innovations and novelty is of no use for industries facing financial crisis. Investing in research is a long term venture. It gives incredible financial success provided it is done in a right direction. One more aspect, that is capital expenditure. Commercial production of any newly developed fermentation is expensive and may require outlay of the capital. Establishment of expensive fermentation equipment which are in continuous use for the production along need the maximum requirement for capital expenditure with other facilities. Thus, a new fermentation setup require the preempt of existing facilities along with construction of additional facilities. A similar condition may take place for product recovery and purification facilities also. A newly developed fermentation process may have need of setting up newly designed fermentation equipment. Installation of this equipment to a great extent add additional cost to the fermentation cost. One more aspect, that is patent position. The profit picture of any fermentation process or product is remarkably influenced by the sound patent position. Patent's position of process or product help in reducing the extensive commercial competition which remarkably influence the profit picture. A promising patent position provides greater potential for cost recovery and an adequate profit. The cost for getting a patent are relatively small. However, in case any infringement proceedings are instigated, the patent becomes a costly affair. Patents can yield revenue to the holder through its utilization in the production and marketing of the fermentation product. For return of royalties, it is possible to license then patent to other fermentation companies and even competing companies. Even after doing so, the patent holders can still produce the fermentation product. Many times, the patent holder may not have to capital or may not have the capital or facility to produce and market the product. In such cases, it may be to the advantage of the patent holder to license the patent without producing the fermentation product or to sell the patent outright. One more aspect, that is overhead. General expenses incurred for the running of a business is called overhead expense, which include taxes, rent, insurance, heat, light, audit and accounting, depreciation and other routine office expenses. These all expenses contribute to the overall cost of product before they introduce in the market sale. Third component, that is process appraisal. The prior deliberations must be evaluated keeping in mind the presence of future market conditions to assess the economic patent for any fermentation process development. It is equally important to re-evaluate the process during commercial production. Following aspects should be considered during overall evaluation of any fermentation process. That is, estimation of present and future availability and price of the fermentation substrate, cost of labor, overhead expense, public demand for product, competition in the market, potential for bettering yield, product recoveries, capability and facilities to meet market demand for the product, consideration of all present and future cost, and selling price and desired profit for the product. All of these dimensions must be studied thoroughly to decide before the production of any fermentation product. Thank you very much.